There are a ton of videos out there I see pop up on my YouTube feed that say a lot of things like how to make $1,000 a month, how to make $5,000 a month, how to pay your mortgage using stocks. And I feel like for somebody just starting out, that can be a little cumbersome. There's a lot to kind of go into play. There's a lot of things that you may not think about. And I feel like sometimes people get stuck because the numbers are just too big. For a lot of stocks, just to get $1,000 a month, you would need to put in 30, 40 grand. And I feel like because the numbers are so large, some people won't even start. So what I want to do is I'm going to pick two stocks that I can think of pretty easily that you could put in some money into and make $100 a month. Why $100? I think $100 is important because $100 is enough to pay for a small bill, maybe a light bill, maybe your car insurance, maybe, I don't know, your lunch diet, uh, water bill, something. $100 is important because it's a starting place. And for a lot of those other videos, one thing that they often will say is if you could put in $100 a month to this over the next 30 years, you would have blah. So if nothing else, if you follow these techniques, you put this into play, you will at least be able to do those things. So let's get started. All right. So to start, I think it's really important to understand what a dividend is because there are different dividends, there are different classes of dividends, there are different time periods. So just because you see something paid $2 last month doesn't mean it's going to pay $2 the following month. So there are different things you got to look at. Now, what is a dividend? A dividend is basically something that. So, what is a dividend? A dividend is basically something that occurs when someone owns a portion of a business. Now, there are qualified dividends, there are unqualified dividends. Some of the differences I won't go over here, but I can tell you they mainly have tax implications. You get charged tax depending on the type of dividend it is. But for this story, we're not going to focus on that. For this particular exercise, what you need to more look at is how much they're paying and how often they're paying. How often they're paying could be multiple variations. There are some dividends that pay weekly, there's some that pay monthly, and there's some that pay yearly. There's some that just randomly pay when they feel like it. We don't want to mess with those. We want to stick with the monthly, the quarterly, or potentially the weekly. Another important thing to look at when picking these is how stable is the stock price. If a dividend's payout is too high, it becomes a burden on the actual underlying stock. And if all of their money is going towards the dividend, then that company can't grow, at least not as well as they could if they kept some of the money. Some of the biggest growth companies in the world, you look at something like an Apple, they don't barely pay anything. And it's because all of that money just goes back into their technology, which then raises the stock price. So instead of paying dividends, they just raise the overlying stock price. But let's get an example here. All right. So this is stocker symbol RF, stands for Region Financial. It's a bank, one of the banking stocks out there. And bank stocks usually do pay out money. Some categories pay more than others, but banking is one that usually does pay out something. So when you're trying to figure out if a stock is good for you, there's a couple things I would say to do. Number one, you can look at something like the chart, right? Look at the chart. So this is over 6 months. You can even pull it out to a year. So over the year, you can see you started here at around 1937. You're up to 23. You can go back a little further if you want. And if you see this where it's consistently going up, that's usually a good sign. Nextly, go to check out the dividend. All right. So you can see here, this one is a quarterly dividend, meaning it doesn't pay every month. It pays every 4 months. All right. So This one, as you can see here, pays out quarterly. So instead of paying monthly, it's going to pay out every 4 months. You can see there's some information in here. I'm not going to go over a ton of that, but this is what's important to me, this quarterly. So if you click in here, you can get some more information. You can see the dividends are regular. The frequency normally is quarterly. The last one was 25 cents. There's an announcement date. That's basically when they say this is when the dividend's coming. There's X dividend date, which is basically if you buy, you have to buy before this date if you want to get paid for it. And then there's like the record date. On the record date, that's when they have established who had the stock ahead of time. Then there's a pay date. So as you can see here, the next time this pays out will actually be next year, January 2nd, 2025. So if you want to get into regions, you got a little time, and you can already see ahead of time it's going to be 25 cents. Now, another thing that's important is to look at growth. As you can see here, they have just like a little chart here. This one pays out quarterly, so it's a little easier to see all the numbers. But you can see a pattern here. 15, 15, 17, 17, 2021. 17, 17, 2020, 2022. 2020, 2024, 2023, 24, 24, 25, 25, 2024. So as you can see here, this one is actually growing 1 to 2 cents, basically per year, with really 2023 being the main jump, or doing a little bit more than that. But the point is, it's growing. It's growing. The chart is showing that the price is growing. This is a solid stock. Now, back to our original, the main reason people are here, right? You want to make $100 out of this stock. Well, we just showed it's paying 25 cents. So the math of that is you need to figure out how many shares would it take to generate this $100. And they're paying 25 cents, right? All right, so we know each stock we have is going to pay us 25 cents, right? So by default, we know to get to $1, it's going to be $4 per share, right? We need 100 of those because we want $100. So times 100, that's going to be 400 shares to get $1, right? But here's the problem, because we have 400 shares and we do times what I said, 25 cents. That's 100. The problem is this only pays every 4 months. So in reality, you need to multiply this again times 4, because you need a number that once you divide it over the months will still give you what you wanted. So the answer is 1,600 shares will each pay you 0.25. That's $400. And then if you divide that out over the months, that will give you your answer. Now, the last part of this is what would that cost? So you see, this is 1,600 shares, and the price currently is $23.73. So times 23.73, 37,968. That is a lot of money, especially if you're just starting out. So I've come to essentially show you potentially a better way. You had to decide for yourself. Pretty much my favorite stock right now, just because of growth and income, if that is your goal, is NVDY. This particular stock is paying out not 25 cents a quarter. It's actually doing closer to $1 a month. It's about $4 a quarter if you're using that same math as before. So you see the most recent was $1.09. So just to do that same quick math here, we want $100. So you have to divide that by 1.09. That is 91.74. Let's just say 92. So if you owned 92 shares of NVDY, They pay out $0.09. That gets you just slightly above the $100. But let's go back the other way. So at 92 shares times, and then what's the price? It's very similar to Regent's price. It's 26.29. That would cost you $2,418.68. So as you can see, that is much, much, much more attainable than spending, what was it, $36,000, something like that, just to get $100 a month. I'm not saying you should put all of your money into this stock or stocks like this, but when it just comes to getting started, think about how much easier it would be to get to the regions. If you had this $100 a month where you could start investing in different things, you could start paying bills, or, I mean, God forbid, if something happens, like the first thing you're supposed to have is a nest egg. Things like this can help you build that out, especially if your job isn't allowing this. Extra $100 a month goes a long way. All right. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed this. Put a comment below. What stock would you recommend if you just wanted to build out this $100 a month? I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of different ideas, but just for somebody starting out, what would you recommend? Saying something like VU, I feel like it's not a good answer. It's just not. It's good for long-term growth. It's good for having something that's traditionally grown over 30 years, all that stuff. But if your goal was to get $100 a month, I don't believe VU is a good answer. I like JEPQ. I think that's something that is attainable as well. Hope you liked the video. In case you didn't know, I's a hobo. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.